Good afternoon. I am Toya Porter, and I'm an education consultant with the LDOE Division of Nutrition Support. And today we will be discussing the community eligibility provision submitting the CEP elections. Today's training will focus on current guidance and background information, the CEP notification requirements, the Child Nutrition Program CEP worksheet and calculator feature. This is where you'll be submitting your CEP elections, as well as other CEP considerations. There are many guidance materials available for more information on the Community Eligibility Provision. The Community Eligibility Provision Planning and Implementation Guidance Manual, which was released on September 2016, Memo SP 54 2016 Community Eligibility Provision Guidance and updated Q&As, which is in our system as SFS 16-X128, which was released on September 2016. The Eligibility Manual for School Meals, which was released on July 2017, and the Memo SP 2017 Community Eligibility Provision Annual Notification and Publication Requirements, or in our system as SFS 17-46, which was released in March of 2017. So we will review what CEP is. CEP is a program established by the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act that allows students to receive free meals under the SBP and NSLP. While the program operates on a 4-year cycle, schools may opt in or opt out each year. As an alternative to household applications for free and reduced price meals, CEP schools cannot process meal applications. Prior to being approved to participate in CEP, the SFAs must agree to the following: to serve all children free breakfasts and lunches, cover the costs above reimbursement amounts with non-federal funds, not collect or process meal applications, and SFAs by individual site or clusters of sites must have an enrollment with at least 40% of the students considered identified students to participate in CEP. Your data point must be as of April 1st of the school year prior to participation. For example, April 1st, 2023 was for school year 23-24. Residential childcare institutions are not eligible. SFAs must use non-federal funding sources to cover operational costs when the federal reimbursement received under CEP is less than the cost of providing no-cost meals to all students. Non-federal funding sources include, but are not limited to, any portion of state revenue matching funds that exceeds the minimum requirement established by 7 CFR Part 210.17, profits from a la carte sales, cash donations, or in-kind contribution funds from outside sources such as volunteer services. During the process of determining school eligibility, the term identified students refers to children who are directly certified for free school meals based on their participation or a household member's participation in other means-tested assistance programs, such as the SNAP program, the TANF program, the food distribution program on Indian reservations, or Medicaid free. Identified students are also children who are categorically eligible for free school meals without an application and who are not subject to verification including homeless, runaway, and migrant, children enrolled in a federally funded Head Start program or a comparable state-funded Head Start or pre-kindergarten program, foster children certified through the means other than a household application. Please note that children must be considered eligible for one of these categories between the start of the school year and April 1st, keeping in mind that the file that comes out in April will be based on March data. So just to reiterate, all children that fall into the categories listed are referred to as identified students. SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, and Medicaid-free students and their siblings, plus homeless, migrant, runaway, and foster, plus Head Start, all equal identified students. A few quick points for SFAs to remember in determining school eligibility are students in the same household with directly certified students, such as SNAP, TANF, or Medicaid-free, can be counted as identified students. SFAs are not able to use information from free and reduced applications to identify these students. If an identified student percentage of at least 62.5% is determined, then all meals will be reimbursed at the free rate. If the identified student percentage falls between 40 and 62.5%, then meals will be reimbursed at a combination of both free and paid rates. This is the formula that SFAs should use to determine the identified student percentage. You will divide the number of identified students as of April 1st by the number of enrolled students as of April 1st, and then multiply by 100. I have provided two examples of percentages for you. The first example shows a school that has determined that there are 550 identified students with a total of 700 enrollment students. To find the identified student percentage, or ISP, you should divide the 550 identified students by the enrollment of 700, which will give you 0.785-71429, which rounds to 0.785. Multiply by 100 to calculate the ISP of 78.58%, which meets the threshold. The second example shows 279 identified students with a total enrollment of 700 students. Again, you would divide the 279 identified students by the 700 enrollment students, and you will get 0.39857142, which rounds to 0.3985. Multiply by 100 to get the ISP of 39.85%. Please remember that the ISP must be at least 40% to be eligible. Therefore, the percentage of 39.85% does not meet the threshold. For schools participating in CEP, the ISP is multiplied by 1.6 to equal the percentage of meals claimed at the free rate. The remaining meals served up to 100% are reimbursed at the paid rate. In example 1, we will use the ISP from the previous slide of 78.57% multiplied by the CEP multiplier of 1.6, which equals a claiming percentage of 125.71%. And this percentage exceeds 100%, therefore all meals can be claimed as free. In example 2, an SFA with an ISP of 46.85% multiplied by the CEP multiplier of 1.6 equals a claiming percentage of 74.96%. So this SFA will claim 74.96% of their meals as free and the remaining 25.04% as paid. All LEAs operating CEP are required to conduct a data match at least once annually. It is recommended that you conduct these data matches monthly. Doing this will allow SFAs to take advantage of ISP increases and observe demographic trends. But please be mindful that the identified student percentage must be established based on data as of April 1st of the school year prior to CEP election. Now we will discuss notification requirements. Each year, state agencies must notify LEAs of their district-wide eligibility for CEP and provide the procedures for interested and eligible LEAs to participate by April 15th. State agencies collect school-level information by April 15th and post list of eligible SFAs with an ISP greater than 40% and near eligible SFAs with an ISP lower than 40% but greater than 30%. LEAs and schools on state agency websites and provide FNS the link to these lists by May 1st. The requirements for CEP elections are as follows. CEP elections begin on June 1st, 2023. Will begin on June 1st, 2023. Each year, all CEP elections must be made by June 30th. All CEP elections will be completed in the Child Nutrition Program website. On this slide, you will find a listing of the CEP deadline dates. It is important to note that all SFAs must confirm the population data in eScholar CEP Manager by April 15th. All SFAs must have make final elections regarding CEP participation for school year 23-24 through the CMP system by June 30th. Now we will review the CEP worksheet and the calculator tool. Once the population data is correct and submitted, you are ready to submit the CEP worksheet. All data entered into the population tab in eScholar will populate to the CEP worksheet. You must have submitted the initial CEP elections by April 15th. We are in the process of building enhancements to elections in eScholar, but will be utilizing the CMP website until those enhancements are complete. To access the CEP worksheet, you must log into the CMP website, click the green School Food Service tab, and scroll down the listing on the left side of the screen to select CEP participation. This screenshot is of the CEP worksheet. This form will contain the data pre-populated from the population tab in eScholar. The base year is the first year of the 4 years CEP cycle. If the SFA reestablished, the base year will be the date of reestablishment. For example, a base year of 2023 means school year 22-23 was the first year of the 4-year cycle, whereas a base year of 2024 means school year 23-24 will be the first year of the 4-year cycle. If you select the same CEP cluster as the prior year, you will have the option to continue current base year, which means continuing with your original numbers, or you may have the option to renew the current base year, which is the reestablishing using this year's numbers. Please pay close attention to the continue current base year and renew base year selections. Also, there is a district-wide button. If you are electing CEP district-wide, you can check the district-wide button and all sites will be clustered together. The initial CEP population data submission was due by April 15th, 2023. This final CEP elections data submission must be done by June 30th, 2023. There will be no exceptions. Once CEP determinations are made for each site, you must certify the information is correct by checking the box next to the certification statement. Then, after checking the certification box, you may submit. The calculator tool allows the SFA to try different CEP scenarios without affecting the CEP worksheet. This should prevent accidental submissions of the CEP worksheet. The calculator tool provides the option to create up to 4 different scenarios to experiment with different combinations of CEP participation to discover which grouping would work best for your SFA. Let's go through the steps of creating a scenario. To begin, you will click Add Scenario. Then you will click the name of the school to select it for your population data calculator. Once the name of the school has been selected, it will turn blue and can be added to your calculations. In this step, you will confirm the schools 1, 2, and 3 have been added to your calculations because they are now blue. Then you will enter the identified and enrolled students in both of these columns. You will manually enter the identified students and the enrolled students as of your April 1st data for each school, then select the cluster ID. You will repeat step 3 for each of the schools that are in your cluster. Once the identified students, enrolled students, and cluster ID have been entered, the individual school percentage, or ISP, will populate in the ISP column. The total cluster ISP, as well as the cluster ISP claiming percentage, will automatically populate in the 2 circles on the right of your screen. Let's look at some examples on the next few slides. In scenario 1, with all schools put into one cluster, School 3 brings down the total ISP to 24.25% with a 38.80 claiming percentage. In scenario 2, we removed school number 3 from CEP, therefore it's grayed out. Using the same population data for schools 1 and 2 from scenario 1, we find that we can reach 100% claiming. In scenario 3, we enter a prospective new schools data to see if it would make sense to bring them on to our CEP program. In this case, we would still remain at 100% claiming by adding this prospective new school. In scenario 4, with the high ISP prospective new school, we could then reach a 71.13% claiming percentage if we participated system-wide, which would then allow School 3 to be added back into CEP with such a low ISP. Other CEP considerations. The CEP reimbursement rate corresponds with the poverty level of the households served by participating schools. Changes to a student population could indicate a change in the poverty level of the households served by the school and may require an ISP to be recalculated within a 4-year cycle, depending on the extent of the change and the entity involved. Please refer to Memo SP 54-2016, Community Eligibility Provision Guidance and Updated Questions and Answers for more information on when to establish a new Year 1. New schools and CEP. Newly opened schools and/or schools new to the National School Lunch Program or School Breakfast Program will not have direct certification data from April 1st of the prior year, and instead may use direct certification data from a later month to establish their CEP eligibility. If the number of identified students and total enrollment are available before the counting and claiming of meals begins and the new school meets the eligibility requirements, either individually or as part of a group, then the LEA may elect CEP. New schools can elect CEP only if the number of identified students and enrollment are available because the ISP is the basis for claims for reimbursement. Please note the deadline for election remains June 30th for all schools. When deciding to opt out of CEP, SFAs or schools may elect to stop CEP at any time by notifying the Department of Education of the decision, notifying households of the decision, and allowing ample time for submission of free and reduced applications. SFAs must offer all students reimbursable free meals for a period of at least 30 operating days following the date of restoration of standard procedures or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first. If an SFA elects to no longer apply the CEP in their system or at targeted sites within the system, the SFA must notify the state agency that they wish to not apply CEP in the following school year, no later than June 30th of the current year. SFAs may not discontinue CEP once that school year has begun. The end of a CEP cycle or grace year. If the SFA does not have an identified student percentage of 40% or higher in year 4 of the current cycle, the SFA may be eligible to stay on the option for an additional year, which will be the grace period. In order to be eligible for this grace year, the identified student percentage in year 4 of the last cycle must be between 30% and 39.99% ISP. The percentage of meals reimbursed at the free rate during the grace year is based on the new lower ISP. For example, if your ISP is 39.82%, your free claiming will be 63.71% and paid claiming will be 36.29%. Carryover and transfer of eligibility. F&S encourages state agencies to implement the discretionary carryover provision to ensure that children moving from CEP to non-CEP schools continue to have access to school meals and do not experience a gap in school meal access at the beginning of a school year. Allowing LEAs to provide carryover eligibility to students transitioning from CEP schools aims to limit disruptions in providing meal benefits to low-income students and minimize the burden of the affected LEAs. Meals served to students during the carryover period are claimed at the federal free rate. For purposes of the CMP's carryover refers to a child's eligibility from the previous school year being carried over into the current or new school year. According to 7 CFR 245.6 C2, an individual student's eligibility from the previous school year, which is defined as prior to July 1, carries over for up to 30 operating days into the new school year, or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first. The 30 operating days begins on the first operating day of school. Operating days are the days on which reimbursable meals are provided by a school or another program sponsor. Carryover applies to eligibility established through a household application or through direct certification. Meals served during the carryover period are claimed at the appropriate rate, depending on the individual child's eligibility status from the previous school year. Carryover allows students to continue receiving school meal benefits while families complete and submit and schools process applications. The carryover period is not intended to delay processing of applications. Instead, schools must process applications as they are received and promptly notify households of their eligibility status. Within 10 days of receiving the application, the LEA must make a determination and notify the household of its eligibility status. This is also referenced in Federal Regulations 7 CFR 245.6 C6. While not required to issue a notification about the carryover period, school officials are encouraged to clarify for families that the carryover will end after 30 operating days. School officials should inform affected families that they must submit a new application for meal benefits to reestablish their child's eligibility before the end of the carryover period. If a student transfers within an SFA from a non-CEP school to another non-CEP school, the free or reduced eligibility must transfer with the student from the previous school. If a student transfers from a non-CEP school to a CEP school within an SFA, the student will automatically receive free meals. If a student transfers from a CEP school to a non-CEP school within an SFA, the SFA must provide free meals for up to 10 operating days or until a new eligibility determination is made. If a student transfers to a new SFA from a non-CEP school to another non-CEP school, the free and reduced price eligibility may transfer from one SFA to another. If a student transfers from a non-CEP school to a CEP school in a new SFA, the student will receive free meals at the new school. And if a student moves from a CEP school into a non-CEP school in a different SFA, the school must provide free meals for 10 operating days or until a new eligibility determination is made. The procedure to ensure CEP accuracy. The LDOE state agency is responsible for ensuring that LEAs seeking to adopt CEP must meet all of the participation requirements. This will include the review of a 10% or a statistically valid sample of the CEP ISP data to ensure its accuracy. For more information, please access the memos at the links provided. The Paid Lunch Equity Tool. Federal regulations require SFAs participating in the National School Lunch Program to ensure sufficient funds are provided to the Nonprofit School Food Service Account, or the NSFSA, for meals served to students not eligible for free or reduced price meals. In SFAs that have elected to participate in CEP district-wide, paid lunch equity is not applicable. In districts that have some CEP schools and some non-CEP schools, the CEP schools are excluded from the paid lunch equity calculation. You can also reference the Community Eligibility Provision Planning and Implementation Guidance from September 2016, page 52, for more information. So when should a meal charge policy be developed? If all schools in an SFA operate a non-pricing provision, such as CEP, the SFA is not required to develop a meal charge policy, as no children will be charged for meals. If any school or schools in an SFA operate standard counting and claiming, the SFA must develop a meal charge policy. Please reference memo SFS 17-49 for additional information. Verification. While CEP schools will not complete the verification process, the SFA must complete the verification summary form. Income surveys. The benefit of an income survey is to provide an alternative method of determining the economic status of individual students, since CEP schools are not allowed to collect free and reduced price meal applications. School systems without meal applications may not be capturing kids that are economically disadvantaged based on income eligibility for free or reduced meals. Please note that alternate household income surveys are not school meal applications, and the cost associated with collecting household income information in CEP schools may not be charged to the nonprofit school food service account. Students identified as economically disadvantaged on income surveys are not considered identified students for CEP. Record-keeping requirements. CEP schools are subject to the same basic reporting and record-keeping requirements as schools conducting normal counting and claiming or operating under other special provisions. The state agency does assess the accuracy of an LEA's ISPs. In Louisiana, as a part of the administrative review, the state agency will locate 10% or a statistically valid sample of the identified student names on appropriate source documentation. Therefore, the SFA must, at a minimum, as a part of the administrative review records, maintain the following ISP data for LEAs and schools participating in CEP. A list of all of the identified students with their ISP classification used to determine the ISP from all schools participating in CEP from each district, as well as documentation for the total enrollment at all CEP schools, a sample list of students that the state agency used to verify the initial ISP, and all records from the year any updates are made to the ISP, as well as the ISP worksheet the LEAs use to calculate the ISPs and submit it to the state agencies with appropriate documentation. In addition, documentation must be retained for 3 years after submission of the final claim for reimbursement under that claiming percentage. This also includes maintain the records used in the development of the ISP during the entire period CEP is in effect, and records for the initial approval year, and all records from the year any updates are made to the ISP. In summary, all CEP elections must be completed in the Louisiana Department of Education Child Nutrition Program website. The process of submitting CEP elections will begin on June 1st, 2023, and must be completed by June 30th, 2023. We have a few proposed changes to CEP. USDA is considering lowering the threshold from 40% to 25%. Congress is also considering increasing the multiplier from 1.6 to 2.5. Congress is also considering a statewide CEP option. USDA has said that they are unsure about if or when these measures will go into effect. The state agency will post information as soon as we receive guidance. There is also no guarantee that any of these measures will pass prior to the school year of 23-24. Now we will allow a few minutes for questions. If you have any questions, please place them in the chat box below. Or if you would like to send us an email, you are more than welcome to email us the questions at childnutritionprograms@la.gov or contact us by phone at 225-342-9661.
Hey everyone, we have a couple of questions. This is Stephanie Loop. We have a couple of questions about where CEP elections are going to be made this year. This year's CEP elections are going to be made in our CNP website like they were previous to last year. So last year was the first year we used eScholar for population and elections. There are some enhancements that we are trying to make to the system. Honestly, to make it more user-friendly for the end user, to make it more user-friendly for you. So while we're waiting on those enhancements, we're going to go ahead and move elections back into our CNP system. We're going to have it loaded with your data from population, and you will be able to go in and make elections like you used to. It's described in great detail on these slides throughout this presentation. We will be posting a memo, and we will be posting this recording and the training materials for your reference when it gets time to make your elections in June. When you go into our CNP website, you'll go to the green tab, and then on that left-hand column, that left-hand green column, you're going to click on CEP, and it's going to take you to the elections that you need to do. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I see that there was a question about emailing the presentation. This presentation will be posted to the Louisiana Fit Kids website, hopefully within a few days, and you will be able to access it at your leisure.
And as always, we're we're available and willing to help. So if you have any questions, you can contact us at childnutritionprograms@la.gov, or you can call the number listed on this slide, and we're happy to walk through your specific scenarios and help you make the best choice for next year. Thank you all for joining today, and hope you all have a good afternoon.